Welcome and thank you for standing by. Currently, all participants are in listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to our host for today, Wendy Peebles.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wendy Peebles with the U.S. Census Bureau Economic Management Division. The Census team is happy to host the webinar today, Getting Back on the Trade Road and Navigating Your Way to New Export Sales with our interagency partners. May is recognized as World Trade Month in the U.S., and this is an opportunity to show the positive impact of exporting on the U.S. economy. Today, we will provide valuable resources and businesses will share their strategies for successful global opportunities following the pandemic. I would like to share with you our federal partners that are joining us today to include the U.S. Small Business Administration, International Trade Administration, U.S. Commercial Service, Export-Import Bank of the United States, and the Census Bureau. Following today's webinar, we believe you will have the following takeaways to assist you with your business operations. Gain insight from successful exporters who are back on the trade road. Learn about federal export promotion programs and services that can help your company grow sales to foreign markets. Also, discover trade information resources to support export plans. Now, for our agenda for today, we will begin with our business roundtable that will be moderated by Gabriel Esparza, Associate Administrator for International Trade, U.S. Small Business Administration, Trade Events, New Opportunities by John Larson, Director, Content Strategy, Communications, and Marketing, International Trade Administration. Lastly, you will hear from Michael Jackson on federal agency tools for supporting trade event participation. And Michael Jackson is the Senior International Trade Specialist, U.S. Commercial Service. Then we're going to wrap up with our questions and answer using the Q&A feature that is located in the lower right-hand corner by clicking on those three little dots in the lower right-hand corner and submit your questions to all panelists. And we'll address as many questions as we can throughout the webinar. And also, we have an evaluation. Your feedback is important to us, and that helps us in planning future content that can assist you with your business operations and provide you with federal resources that supports global growth. So just wanted to share that with you, the flow of today. And now, let me just share a little bit about our moderator, Mr. Gabriel Esparza. He is the Associate Administrator for the Office of International Trade at the U.S. Small Business Administration. He leads SBA efforts to expand U.S. exports by providing expertise and technical assistance to small business exporters, advancing favorable trade policy that ensures access to foreign markets, and by offering grants and other trade financing solutions. With a wealth of a global understanding and perspective gained through professional and personal experience, Gabe is highly sought after for his leadership in both business and community affairs. He is a seasoned executive with over 25 years of experience, leading private sector businesses spanning both large corporations and nimble startups. He holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a BA in International Relations from Stanford University. So I'd like to turn it over to Gabe to begin the panel discussion.
All right, well, thank you very much, Wendy, and thank you all for joining us today. This is indeed the last day of the month of World Trade Month, and so we want to take this opportunity to share with you some of the stories of our small business owners that we see out every week when we're traveling around the country, and share with you their firsthand experience on what it means to be a small business owner, what it means to be in the international trade space, and of course, as is the theme for today's discussion, what it means to be back out there again now that the pandemic is sufficiently behind us. So you see the three folks that we have joining us today. Let's start with our first guest, Lisa Bamford. Lisa, how are you? Let me make sure you are on camera first. Very good. Welcome, welcome. So if you could, since we do see your background here on the screen, if you could just give us a little sense of the company and how you got involved with the company, and how things are going today.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this discussion this afternoon. It's been an exciting month for us at ScienceX. We were founded in 1985, so we just celebrated our 38th birthday as a company this past spring. And we were founded by a service engineer. What we do at ScienceX is we manufacture repair and replacement parts and what we call performance maintenance kits for research analytical instruments that you would find in laboratories. Now, these can be found in laboratories in the range from medical research, drug development, agricultural and environmental laboratories, forensic and toxicology, food and beverage, home good development. So they really do run quite a range as to where these instruments are found. I often joke with my friends and say, if you watch a crime show, at some point on that show, there's a forensic lab where they're doing the DNA test. And if you look in the background, you're probably going to see one of the instruments we support. But what does that mean for you? So one great example that everyone can relate to is medical. So if you go to the drugstore and you get some Excedrin for your headache, and you turn that bottle over and you look on the back of it, you're going to see a long list of long words that you can't pronounce. In this case, the active ingredient is acetaminophen, and it will give a little measurement, 250 milligrams. Well, 250 didn't just come out of nowhere. Something had to measure that to make sure it's going to be effective for you and safe for you. So these instruments, that's just one example of what they measure, and we support laboratories in over 100 countries, because you can imagine these labs are everywhere. So we work through distributors, we work through direct customers, and we just opened a second location of expansion back in 2019, which is now our headquarters in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Great. And you have your original site is where? Minnesota, correct?
Burnsville, Minnesota, one of the manufacturing hubs of the country.
All right, so Minnesota and Raleigh, North Carolina, and if I'm not mistaken, you have a special award designation that you got. So just briefly tell us about your accolades.
That's right. Well, we got involved with small business support right around the fall of 21. That's when we began to dive in and tap into some of the resources we'll talk about today. But in a very short amount of time, with diving into that process and utilizing every tool we could get our hands on, we were nominated for the state award for Small Business Exporter of the Year. We were told that the competition is fierce and that, you know, we're gonna keep our fingers crossed, but we'll see what happens. And to make a long story short, when we received the phone call, Gabe, you were on that call to tell us some exciting news, we thought, well, maybe it happened. Maybe we won for the state of North Carolina. And we were overwhelmed to learn that we had been chosen as the National Exporter of the Year by the SBA for 2023.
That is fabulous.
So we're fresh off visits to the White House and shaking hands with the president and just celebrating the position that our international customers have allowed us to be in.
That's fabulous. All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. We will get right back to you with the rest of the story in your journey. So now if we can bring on Sean. Sean, if you come on there, we'll get your camera going. Very good. Sean, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us today. I understand you're in the helicopter business, so talk to us a little bit about you and Rotocorp.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks so much for having me today, Gabriel. Happy to be of service back to the export community that has given us so much. I'm the founder and CEO of Rotocorp. Rotocorp is a authorized Robinson Helicopter Company service center. For those of you not in aviation, Robinson is produced in Los Angeles, California. It's a fully U.S. made aircraft and is the most widely produced helicopter in the world. So chances are, if you see a helicopter flying through the sky, 50-50, it's going to be a Robinson helicopter. Since our inception in 2000, it says 2001 on the sheet, but we were actually founded in 2011. We've grown to serve over 3,000 customers in 45 countries around the world. As you can imagine, our customer footprint closely matches the aircraft location footprint for Robinson. So wherever there are Robinson helicopters, chances are we have a good customer base there.
So now just explain this to me a little bit more. So Robinson makes the helicopters, but you are effectively their outsourced sales arm, reseller. How would you describe what you do then?
So we are yes, Robinson is the manufacturer of the aircraft, and if you bring it to the automotive comparison, we would be what's considered like a local dealer. However, in the course of doing business, we realized that there was a large number of 1 or 2 aircraft operators scattered around the world that did not have adequate local service in close proximity to them. And in fact, there were quite a few of those. And so we decided to go after and consolidate that market by providing online part sales and combine that with our global logistics expertise and export capabilities that we've developed over the years to deliver those goods.
And you're exclusive to Robinson. You're not selling any other brands of helicopters.
Exclusive to Robinson. If it can go in, on, or around a Robinson helicopter, we are interested in it. But right now, we only support that one manufacturer frame. Yes.
Got it. So you're selling the helicopters, you're selling the parts and maintenance that comes after the fact. Are you actually doing the maintenance itself too? If a helicopter
right now, we just do aircraft sales and parts.
Got it. Okay. Well, good. We'll come back to the next part of the story here in a second. Let's flip over to Klein. Klein, it's good to see you. I know we've chatted in the past, and thank you for joining us again today. So tell us a little bit about you and your business and where you're sending your goods.
Great. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for having me and for the whole team for giving us the opportunity to speak at this webinar. I'm Klein Ilology, the co-founder and CEO of Joa Technologies International. We are a 7-year-old mission-focused company developing technologies to efficiently harness solar energy to power food and the agri-food systems. The product we sell is a portable solar dehydrator, food dehydrator for households, small and mid-sized businesses, and that's farmers or microprocessors. We are a startup that was founded 7 years ago. So into 2016, we're founded out of technologies developed at Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, where I also hold a professorship in ag and biological engineering. Our beachhead market is Africa, but of course, Africa is large, specifically in Kenya. And we also have an office in Kenya, which is the High-Tech East Africa that serves the East African market. Besides Kenya, we've sold our products to over 10 countries. And these have not just only been in the continent of Africa, but also in Central Asia, specifically Tajikistan, and some parts of Europe, as well as in small numbers in the Caribbean, specifically in Haiti.
Very good. Well, you are probably one of those stories, since you shared with us that you're also a professor at Purdue, that of the classic small business owner who's hustling in so many ways. You have a business here, you have another job over here. In your case, as a professor, that's a lot to balance. And so I'm sure it resonates with a lot of the business owners that are out there. So thank you again for being with us here today, Klein. If we could take down the slides, bring all of our panelists up together on the screen, and let's get into some of this conversation, which when it comes to trade, it always starts with, how did you get into trading? How did you get into international sales? And the debate is always, did international sales come to you accidentally making you an exporter, or did you go out and seek it out yourself? So Lisa, perhaps, as I saw in your description, you have over 100 countries, if I'm not mistaken, that Science6 exports to. So was this all on purpose, or did this happen by happenstance and accident?
Well, we were founded because there was a huge need in the market for an alternative aside from the OEMs where customers could buy these parts. They were locked into a purchasing pattern with OEMs paying their prices, waiting for their lead times. And so our founder was a service engineer for one of the main OEMs in our industry. So he saw the need. He had a backstage pass, and so he decided to create a solution, and Science6 was born. So we had to first have the product, and we had to have a product that would be quality, that customers would be willing to switch. Consider us the Napa Auto Parts of the lab industry. So we proved the quality, we got the product, we set up a very strong operations system, and to be very honest, it started organically. Customers came to us. They were so desperate for an alternative that word of mouth, referrals, and for a long time, that's what we relied on. So we began to advertise in some of the global publications in our industry, attending trade shows that would expose us to a larger audience. And then we had trained a team to take care of all of the shipping. We have a wonderful shipping team that knows all of the codes and keeps us compliant. So we had that tightened up as well. It was with the small business support and the SBA tools that then allowed us to marry strategy and organic growth. And that's when things really went.
We'll come back to all the government interaction, but it sounds like what was at first, here's a few orders from overseas, very quickly became a very deliberate and specific strategy, now resulting in 100 countries in which you export to. So that's fabulous. Sean, it sounded like you started Southeast region of the United States as the reseller of Robinson helicopters. How did you get into the international component of it?
Well, actually, quite the opposite. While we are located in the Southeast U.S., we're actually global from inception. We did a market analysis and did some research on where our customers were located, and realized that we actually could not rely on the revenues from the Southeast region to support our business, and realized that we actually needed to reach out to these international customers and become proficient at that as quickly as possible once we opened our doors. And we've spent lots of money, made lots of expensive mistakes before we started wanting to do it formally and strategically. That became the easier, softer way eventually.
But from day one, all right, that's impressive. That is not how most companies start. Most companies start domestically and then realize, either accidentally or because there's such a big market opportunity overseas, quickly from the get-go. But it sounds like you've been global from day one. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Klein, you had mentioned in your opening that East Africa is where you've got a big anchor market for you. And my question perhaps is the opposite for you. Do you do any domestic, or is it all overseas?
No, we do domestic, though we haven't really broken in big in our domestic market. So currently 99% of our revenues from international sales.
Wow.
Since our inception, we went overseas because, like I said, our technologies were developed out of Purdue, actually through a USAID grant, and to focus on Kenya and Senegal. So our DNA was looking at the overseas market, and we still pursuing the U.S. market, but the need overseas is very dire. It has to do with food insecurity. The need here has to do with lifestyle.
Got it. So just by the nature of your target client, almost by definition, you're overseas because there's more of a need in certain emerging markets, I imagine.
That's correct. The pain is dire with respect to food insecurity.
Got it.
And like I said, there's a need here, but it's more of a lifestyle.
All right. So then before we get into the pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, the required skills in some companies to understand customs and tariffs and freight forwarding, bills of lading, all of these things related to customs and trading. Where did you get that expertise? Right? Is that something that you brought to the table? You had to go hire somebody, got trained? Lisa, maybe it's you. How did all of this expertise get built out in Science6?
Well, actually, a very early employee in the company before my time joining Science6 took it upon herself to learn as much as she could and reached out to a local Department of Commerce representative and basically said, tell me what I got to do. And then she built some very strong relationships with FedEx and UPS. And so we had training from them. They would come on site, make sure everything was set up correctly, compliant, and we have ongoing relationships with them. And then over a series of the company's growth, it was a very internal transfer of information that's been very successful. And I would say our team, they knew all of this before I did. I didn't know what a HTS code was until Jenny Vaca told me one day. She's our international local small business representative. So it started internally with somebody who had a drive to learn it, and then we just continued to carry that torch.
Got it. Sean, since you've been doing international from day one, that means somebody, perhaps you, was building up that international expertise from the beginning.
100% me. My brother and co-founder, he's the helicopter and technical guy for the what we do.
And you're the trade guy.
Everything else fell on my shoulders. So I think my first exposure to formal import-export and international trade training actually came through a local UPS seminar. Luckily, they are headquartered here in Atlanta, and those types of courses are fairly commonplace. Our next point of contact was actually to the U.S. Commercial Service through our contact at the Georgia UGA, the Small Business Development Center. Yep. They offered a free review of our website, and offered some really incredible advice and input and insights on how to globalize our website, make it appealing to a broad number of potential customers, languages, different countries, so on.
So I'll come back to some of this interaction with
Sure.
other services and so forth. But let me, Klein, so as to not ask everybody the same question every time, let me transition for you to the impact of the pandemic on your business, not necessarily what it meant in terms of dollars and cents, but how you operated differently because of the pandemic.
Oh, very good question. So the pandemic was a very, how will I put it? It was a lull period for us, but also a blessing came afterward, which is interesting. So what came about during the pandemic overseas, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, was food insecurity in a lot of countries. And as I said, our product is geared towards food insecurity. We dry in produce to store for longer periods. And so we were lucky that we had set up the necessary partnerships prior to the pandemic to supply one of the UN organizations some of our product. And the government of Kenya got to see that product, as well as some of the work our partners had done with a government institution. And so we received a very large order from the government to address the pandemic. So that's where the blessing came. Now, of course, I hate for the pandemic to be a blessing to us, but that was our largest export thus far we've received. But also what the pandemic did for us was to help us strategize internally. So prior to the pandemic, we had visited Kenya and actually participated in a trade show where we interacted with customers and had a firsthand knowledge of the pain customers faced, and also the fact that if we really wanted to break into the market, they wanted us to have a presence. They didn't want a used company over there selling goods to them. Every customer always asked, "Do you have an office here, or who's your distributor?"
Right.
So when we during the pandemic, it gave us some time to think through as to how are we going to get into the market. And one of the decisions we made during the pandemic, rather than scale back, we actually established a local company in Kenya.
Mm.
So it was actually during the pandemic we decided to register and set up a company, and then started the office in 2022.
Well, you're right to call it a blessing in disguise. I'm sure nobody would wish the pandemic on us again. But as you all are pointing out, being nimble businesses, you've figured out ways to survive and thrive and adjust your business. So let me go actually counterclockwise for a second. Sean, back to you, and ask the way in which you interact with your either current customers or prospective clients overseas. Is this with a physical presence? Are you going to trade shows? Klein mentioned the word trade shows. What were you doing pre-pandemic, and how was that impacted by the pandemic?
Sure. Our primary avenue of interaction has always been our website. Our philosophy has always kind of been full transparency in pricing and availability, which is not something that was available to our customer base before we created it. Secondarily, we have one major trade show for our industry that happens to be in the United States. It rotates around, but we actually do, excuse me, I'm going in and out of focus here.
Okay.
We actually do use that trade show as an occasion to invite customers from other countries to attend. And it's multifaceted. They can get, aviation training, business training, all aspects of the helicopter industry are represented there. And then on occasion, we will use site visits to either secure or strengthen a business relationship. As an example, one of our preferred primary customers are commercial fishing outfits. And in 2019, we had a customer that we were serving through a distributor, a secondhand distributor, but there were some communication problems, breaks in communication, causing delays and additional expenses. And I decided just to go meet with them directly. Today, that customer is our largest single customer. They operate 14 fishing vessels in Ecuador. Each one has a helicopter on it, and they fly a lot, they break a lot, and they buy a lot of parts. And
that's great. But that's good, because it
look
sounds
them in
like
the eye and shake their hands was an amazingly powerful experience that neither of us were really expecting.
Well, the importance of in-person trust building is, of course, part of the sales process, but it does sound like that is the smaller part of your activities. There's more just orders through websites and so forth. So it sounds like the pandemic was probably less disruptive, perhaps, than others who rely on trade shows, who rely on field sales force overseas, correct?
Yeah, well, and to the contrary, actually, for us, so we are one of approximately 400 service centers that have the same title as we do. However, as the pandemic went worldwide, many of these service centers that are like us either slowed way down, temporarily closed, or in some cases even permanently closed. And those helicopter operators that they serviced still needed to fly and operate. The agriculture is one key aspect of that. And as those operators sought out parts to keep flying safely, many of them found us. So, echoing my co-panelist, I would never shout it from the treetops, but the pandemic actually turned out to be highly beneficial to our business.
Got it. All right. So Lisa, I do want to transition us to our what interactions have you had with the government? If you do want to touch on what the pandemic meant to ScienceX, feel free, but I'd love to get to the point where you're sharing with us, where have you interacted with the federal government? How did that come about? Give us a little bit of that journey as well.
Sure. And I think the blessing that the gentlemen were speaking about with the pandemic is that we could be a solution. We could be agile and adaptable to customers in ways that larger companies could not. And therein lies the silver lining. But back in right around the time of the pandemic, we got a new company president. Our former president decided it was time to retire, and Raj Bhandari took over as our company president and owner. And he had been working at ScienceX for many years in business development. And he brought in a vision at a time when, can you imagine stepping up to that plate during the pandemic? But he brought in a vision and a strategy. And when he hired me, I was one of his first hires here in January of 21. He challenged me, it's a tough time in the world, but there's a lot of customers that need our parts more critically than ever because they're doing now vaccine research and we need to be there for them. Let's figure some things out as to how we can grow our business and get more exposure so people know who we are. So yours truly did a Google search, small business support North Carolina, and up comes the local SBTDC.
Oh, and what does that acronym stand for?
You put me on the
Small
spot.
Business Technology Development Center.
Development Center, yes.
Yep.
There's so many acronyms, right? EDP&C, and we used them all. So I cold called, and a gentleman named Joel Googe answered the phone. We had a lovely conversation. Within 24 hours, we were in the Teams. He wanted to know everything about the business. He was the one who put us in touch with Jenny Veka, who became our international business coach. I completed the CGVP coursework. That's how I learned about all the codes and all the things that I needed to know. And, our company president had taken advantage of an SBA loan to purchase the building and the business. He owns the building both in Minnesota, our test lab, 28,000 square feet, as well as our North Carolina headquarters. And so we began to tap into as many resources as we could. The STEP grant, we were awarded the STEP grant. We put that to work. We created 2 localized websites for Latin America and India, 2 markets we wanted to infiltrate further. We used the STEP grant to purchase booths for international trade shows, to pay for flights to international trade shows. You talk about getting out on the ground, running after the pandemic and in front of people. Being in front of people and having face time has always been central to our business. Trying to demonstrate to customers that if they switch to our parts, they can still rely on quality when they might be running a machine that's working on cancer research and a clinical trial. It's not an easy switch for them. And so in person, I think that business relationships can form more quickly. A lot of us had to go to virtual. That had to be part of the mix. But getting back out to the trade shows has been a real game changer for us in having that face time in person. And because we don't have a large company with boots on the ground and a sales force, getting our boots on the ground where we can becomes very critical to having a presence and to forming those relationships so that when we go back home, we're not strangers.
Perfect. All right. So you mentioned STEP, that's the State Trade Expansion Program grant out of the SBA. And the woman you mentioned, Jenny Veka, works for the Small Business Development Center, which is a public-private partnership with the SBA, but a no-cost opportunity for companies like ScienceX to get counseling and advice on all things international trade.
And Gold Key Services, I'll even add. The Gold Key Services really set us up for success before trade shows, and free audits, free marketing analysis. We didn't have to pay a cent for any of it.
Perfect. Gold Key. Well, that's the Commerce Department, and I'm sort of setting up some of our colleagues to jump into this material a little bit more after we wrap here in a second. But Klein, if you could just give us briefly your interactions with the federal government, SBA, XM, Commerce, State, Ag in your case. Who have you talked to?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. You name it, we've used it.
Okay, all of those, check.
Yeah, all those check. So I received training on the fly. Of course, you make mistakes when you do that. So I was lucky to have participated in the Expert Indiana Accelerator Program, which is through our Indiana Small Business Development Center. I've taken advantage of the STEP grant, the Gold Key. I've taken advantage of theirs, the website globalization analysis, taken advantage of those. I've taken advantage of the Exim insurance, the SB export loans. So, like you said, you name it, we've done it. And one of the good things I learned was the training, like Lisa pointed out, training also. Shandi pointed out training. While I stepped into some of this program by accident by Googling, the training, the Expert Indiana Accelerator program really brought all together. And so during the training, and so I really got more acquainted to these programs, got direct contacts through the training, and got very good effective service. And interestingly, I found the U.S. Commerce Office had local offices in Indiana and Indianapolis, as well as offices in Kenya. So, and I've worked with them in India, in Kenya, wherever I wanted to go. So I've been blessed by these services.
Great. All right, so Sean, wrap us up. Who all have you talked to in the government? What have they done?
Oh man, let's see here. I think really the touchstone for much of our growth came through our participation in the SBA Emerging Leaders Program. It now has a different name. I believe it's Thrive.
Yep.
Not so much export related, but just good. It's like a boot camp MBA program, and that completely changed how I approached the business. Resulted in us experiencing 300% growth in 3 years. It was amazing. Again, we've used the STEP grant to fund trade show and international travel to meet with customers. We've used the U.S. Commercial Service to directly advocate for us on behalf of an international bid we were working on. SBA 7A, export capital working line of credit. There's all kinds of them. But at every step of the way, we found that there was support and an extremely knowledgeable and professional staff behind that wanted us to succeed and was eager to impart the knowledge and experience that they had to our benefit. And I think there's some kind of sometimes a negative connotation on government workers sometimes, but I have to say that every person that I've interacted with in the export and trade regime in the U.S. has been an absolute professional from the top to the bottom.
Well, this government worker, thank you for that endorsement.
Yes.
And this is all perfectly teeing up our colleagues here. So I want the three of you to hang tight. We'll come back for some Q&A in a bit. I'm going to turn it back over to Wendy for some of our colleagues across the federal government and trade apparatus to talk a little bit more about some of the products and services that our small business friends here just teased about. So Wendy, let me pass it back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It was just great to hear from the panel, sharing what they've learned during the pandemic and how they were still able to excel and be adaptable in their business operations. And thanks for sharing all the many federal resources that have helped you along your way on your export journey. Okay, so at this time, we're going to learn a little bit more about trade events and opportunities, and we're going to hear from the one and only John Larson with the International Trade Administration, who sets the standard for a public servant, and very glad to hear that positive feedback regarding federal employees. So just a little bit about John. He has over 30 years of experience with the International Trade Administration. John is the Director of Digital Engagement. His team manages the online resources and tools for exporters on ITA's trade.gov website. In 2020, he led an ITA effort to ensure that the U.S. Commercial Services global operations had the virtual conferencing tools they needed to deliver more virtual events and services. Today, he will go over how the return of different types of in-person events in this post-COVID environment can help exporters get you back on the trade road. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. And thanks to the panel, learning from your stories. So trade events are a great way to get back on the trade road, but it's a very broad topic. So my goal is to briefly break down how different types of events that we organize can help you in different ways. If you pair these with the federal agency tools that Michael Jackson will next talk about, you have a very powerful combination. And you heard about some of those examples from the companies. For all types of events, the COVID-19 pandemic shifted us overnight to virtual. We canceled seminars and we suspended planned trade missions. And 2020, 2021 were terrible years for the trade show industry globally, as you can imagine. The good news is that we are coming out of it stronger than ever, with more virtual and hybrid options, as well as a return to more in-person events of all types. So in-person events still have a very unique ability to connect you with trade and market experts, other U.S. businesses and service providers, and potential foreign buyers and business partners. As the U.S. Commercial Services Director for Digital Engagement, my job is to improve ITA's trade.gov website and what we have there to offer exporters. Our attend an event page at trade.gov /attend-event introduces event offerings as shown on the slide here. For each event, this webpage leads to live and upcoming opportunities that you can sign up for or apply for. First, there's events that are to network and learn. Each year we organize hundreds of webinars, seminars, and conferences. Great example is earlier this month, we had Export Week promotion, where we had more than 3,700 registrants at 40 some in-person and virtual events around the country. As a type of event, webinars like this one give you live access to leading experts on trade, industry, and specific markets. And as you learn today, your stories of other businesses and how you can learn from them. Local in-person seminars enable you to also build your network and connect with federal, state, and local government assistance and private sector service providers. So you can really take the networking and the relationship building further. Regional and national conferences take it even further, connecting you with industry leaders, U.S. commercial diplomats, and specialists that we bring in for access to you. Our flagship annual conference is Discover Global Markets. And this year it will take place in September in 7 cities throughout the United States. Another way to think of events is to meet buyers at events. This is probably the most important way in terms of sales. And we have a couple of options that we offer. Privately organized trade shows where we partner with those organizations to provide additional services, and U.S. Department of Commerce-led trade missions that we lead to targeted markets. Participating in a major trade show is expensive, but nothing really beats them for the on-the-floor deal making that you can do. For about 40 shows each year, we partner with these organizers to offer U.S. companies value-added export services. Excuse me. At major U.S. trade shows, we help U.S. exhibitors network with foreign visitors and often bring foreign buyer delegations to the United States to meet with exhibitors at these shows. Many major foreign trade shows include a U.S.-themed pavilion, which we support with pre-show market briefings and one-on-one counseling and on-site promotions and other services. Alternatively, to meet foreign buyers, the Department of Commerce leads trade missions that can save you valuable time and maximize contacts with pre-screened buyers, and by offering unique networking opportunities with in-country decision makers and potential partners. Another way to think about events is by industry. So these are your, I've talked about the major event types, but how do you zero in on the ones that are most important to your industry and business, the ones where there's really international trade action going on? And I highly recommend that you get engaged with IATA's vibrant industry teams, starting by visiting trade.gov/industries. We have about 20 teams by industry sector, and each is composed of US, international, and headquarters industry experts. On these pages, you can also find industry guides, contact information, opportunities to sign up for industry newsletters to keep you informed. But foremost, they love to promote events. The events they support, the events they want to draw industry's attention to, and that they're participating in some manner. So you'll see those featured prominently. Finally, we offer services, events as a service, if you want to think about it that way. So these are things staged as an event or at an event, but they're for an individualized company or client. So working through our US offices, these event-related services are tailored to either an individual or to a client or client group of companies. The single company promotion service provides US firms with individualized in-country promotional events. So think about a technical seminar, press conference, luncheon, dinner, cocktail reception, some way in which you're going to make a big splash. We're going to market it in advance by email and social media. We're going to organize the event for you, and then we're going to have an after event briefing with you. Another event as a service is called trade show representation. And this is where if a company can't make it to an overseas show, we can actually represent you there. It's only available at some select shows, but we can really get some value out of these foreign events without you having to travel. We also organize virtual fair events, and these provide a group within an industry with an opportunity to promote their products or services to potential partners via a live webinar event. I think we've done things like in the wine industry or in the education sector. And so again, I think your point of contact is with the US office of the Commercial Service to see if those opportunities are available. So there you have it. I hope you take an opportunity to get back on the trade road with events. And then let me turn it over to Michael Jackson on these great federal tools that you've heard a little bit about. And Michael Jackson, I've known for many years. He works with companies every day to actually help them succeed and use these services. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I am Michael K. Jackson, note the K. I was chosen to speak on this webinar about these agencies because I worked for all three agencies, SBA, Exim Bank, who you'll hear about, and now the U.S. Commercial Service. And I'll even talk about Census, although I haven't worked for Census yet. But let me first talk about my first agency in the U.S. government, which was the SBA. Next slide, please. So the SBA has basically three major areas of assistance. First and foremost, business intelligence. If you go to sba.gov/trade tools, that's a great place to start your export journey if you're looking for information on export planning, financing, regulations, and the like. Next, and you've heard about this from actually all three of our panelists today, about the SBA STEP grant funding, which is grant money that's available to you as small businesses through your states to go on trade missions, trade shows overseas, etc. And then finally, financing your international and supply chain sales. SBA has a number of export finance programs that you can avail yourself of, as did a number of our panelists, to grow your international sales. Next slide, please. Let's talk about some SBA export promotion counseling contacts. That's a mouthful. Business intelligence, export counseling. You've heard much about the SBDC today. I think all of our panelists have utilized the SBDC. If you have not, and you're particularly if you're early stage in your export journey, I urge you to go to either sba.gov/SBDC to find out how you can connect with your local SBDC, or just Google SBDC or Small Business Development Center, and you can find one near you. There's an SBA International Trade Hotline if you're facing any trade barriers. There's an 800 number you can have access to, or an email address. But let me jump down to the last one. You're financing your international sales. If you choose, you can actually, instead of calling an 800 number, I'm big, and probably you are too, on personal touch, personal contact. You can actually reach out to one of your SBA international reps by going to sba.gov/international to connect with an SBA trade specialist that can actually speak to you specifically about your particular export needs. And then back up to STEP grant funding. Again, I won't touch too much on that for the sake of time. We've heard much about the SBA STEP grant funding. In your state, it may be called something differently. They market it differently by state. But I urge you, if you haven't tapped into SBA STEP grant funding, go to sba.gov/STEP, and you can find information about how to access those funds in your state. Next slide, please. Okay, now we come to the current day for me as far as career-wise goes, because I'm currently serving with the U.S. Commercial Service. Now, we say we are America's export experts. We are the export promotion arm of the Department of Commerce's International Trade Administration. And the way we are situated, we have what we affectionately call USEAC, so U.S. Export Assistance Centers throughout the country, over 100 where we're located. So there's a USEAC near you somewhere if you are in the United States. And we're broken down by industry vertical. And then the great thing about it is, in addition to the 100 locations that we have domestically, I have colleagues that are located in over 80 countries, inside consulates and embassies overseas, that we can connect you with to discuss how we can grow your export business. Okay, there's a ton of information on the Commercial Service website, or the trade.gov website. John, my colleague, talked about a number of them in terms of trade shows, trade missions that's going on. But if you go to export-solutions, you'll find a ton of information there, and you can find out where your local commercial service office is by going to the website as well. There's a link on the screen. Next slide. Okay, for the sake of time, I won't go too much into our services. Just note that they fall into 4 buckets. You've heard a number of our services. You've heard about a number of our services today. You've heard about our bread and butter, which is our matchmaking programs. You've heard about the Gold Key service, which you can actually take advantage of if you wanted to travel to a country to meet potential buyers, partners. U.S. Commercial Service, through our international network, will actually set those meetings up for you. And these are qualified potential partners for you that you can connect with directly. But let me back up to export counseling. So, no matter where you are in your export journey, one of our representatives in one of the USEACs that I talked about, one of me's across the country, can sit with you and guide you in terms of where you need to go, whether it's pointing you to an SBDC, pointing you to the state, pointing you to any of the plethora of resources that are available to you. Market Intel, trade.gov is a great resource for a ton of market intelligence. We have country commercial guides that you can review that talk about the business environment in these countries that you can do business in. Commercial diplomacy. I want to touch on commercial diplomacy because I think it was Sean that mentioned about advocacy. We affectionately term it big A advocacy or little a advocacy. Big A advocacy is what Sean talked about in terms of if you are competing for government contracts around the globe. the commercial service can come alongside you and advocate on your behalf to help you actually win those contracts, if you will. Okay. Next slide, please. We want to have some Q&A, and I'm running out of time here. Exim Bank came directly to the commercial service from Exim Bank. Exim is America's official export credit agency. Exim helps in a number of ways. Number one, leveling that playing field for you to compete globally to sell your products and services. We know that countries try to tip their fingers on a scale, if you will, while you're competing. Exim Bank comes and actually levels that playing field through two main products: export credit insurance, which I know a number of our panelists talked about using today. Risk mitigation for you as you do business globally. We call it sleep insurance because as a CEO, as a small business owner, it allows you to sleep easy at night, knowing that as you do business globally, you're safe. Can't go too much into detail into that. Working capital loan guarantee, mitigating risk for the banks, but the idea there is if Exim is mitigating risk for the bank, then the banks should actually release more working capital for you to actually do business globally. And we all know as small businesses, that's one of our biggest challenges in terms of that access to capital, particularly for diverse businesses, which leads me to my old team, the Minority and Women-Owned Business, specialized team within Exim Bank that focuses on assisting veteran-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and minority-owned businesses as well. So I believe that's it for Exim Bank. Next slide, please. If one of Exim Bank's reps by clicking, go back one slide, please. Thank you. Connect with one of Exim Bank's reps. Trust me, the minute you click on that consultation request and say that you want to speak to an Exim Bank rep, they're on it, just like that. You get a call, and then there are a ton of resources on Exim's website as well. You see the links on this slide. Next slide, please. Okay, last but not least, the Census Bureau, and this is the one agency that I have not worked for. But real quick, Census, two main programs at Census. Well, first, let me tell you quickly about Census. Census is responsible for collecting, compiling, publishing the monthly statistics on all the goods that are imported and exported to and from the United States. Census has two main tools that you can avail yourself of. One is the USA Trade Online, which is the official source of international trade data for the Census Bureau. USA Trade Online covers over 19,000 import commodities and 9,000 export commodities. Please visit Census website for more. You can call Census hotline as well. You see the number on the screen, and Census does a lot of educational events like this one that you can connect with as well. Next slide. Census's second tool, the Global Market Finder, is a tool that helps users like you, small businesses, find detailed international trade and goods statistics for specific commodity codes, countries of destination, and modes of transportation. All you do is you plug your data into this tool, and you see the red dots come up that indicate for you where some good markets are to target. Next slide. And that's it, Q&A. I'm going to turn it back over to Wendy for as much Q&A as we can handle today.
Oh, yes, great. Thank you. Yes, Gabe, we can go ahead and get started. And we do not have a hard stop at 3 o'clock, so we can go over. Hopefully you can stay on. Gabe?
Okay, I'll just ask a few questions if we can bring back the video of our panelists. I know a number of questions have come in about financing. So Klein, Sean, Lisa, how many of you, raise your hand if you've gotten a loan from either the SBA or the Exim Bank? Okay, so Sean, Lisa too. Let me ask you, how did you do that, right? Did you call us? Did you go to your bank? What did you do?
I'll jump in first. So we've utilized three different SBA loan products. One was actually an SBA product to help purchase my acquisition of my brother's share of the business, which many people might not be aware of is available. And then the other two were export working capital lines of credit. One helped us finance export terms or open account terms for our export clients. One helped us finance our inventory so that we could more immediately serve our clients with off-the-shelf inventory.
And then very specifically, you walk into the bank and you said, I need an export working capital line.
Yep. So
how do they determine whether it's
asked our small business development SBDC development center for a warm referral to our local SBA preferred lender. So not all banks do SBA lending, especially of the type that we were looking for on the export and international trade side. So they were able to put us again with a warm introduction to those lenders.
Got it. All right. So, and Lisa, you said Science6 has also had either an SBA or an XM loan, correct?
Yes, Raj, our business owner, our current president, had gone and gotten a SBA 7A loan to purchase both the test lab facility building in Minnesota as well as a brand new permanent headquarters building here in Cary, North Carolina. And so I can't speak too much for him. He knows the story better than me, but basically he went to the bank and they were aware, and because he didn't think he would ever be president of a company, so they educated him and we quickly learned about it and he took advantage of it.
Got it. Klein, you were going to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we received a line of credit by working with Indiana Small Business Development Center, but we did not utilize the line of credit because we had monies through the export.
All right. So I'll remind everybody that the SBA is not a direct lender. So we are a guarantor, and we do that through the private sector banks. And the bank will determine whether they want to provide a conventional loan to you or they want to use the SBA guarantee in that dynamic. Because as you can imagine, not only are small businesses more risky, but international trade is more risky. So they'll often apply that guarantee to them in order to be able to lend to you all.
Well, good. Gabriel, if I could jump in real quick too, the great kind of kingmaker here is the XM insurance. So we've got an SBA credit facility that we use to provide 30, 60-day open account terms to our international buyers. Now, if a buyer defaults in Papua New Guinea, I am unlikely to be able to go recover that through legal channels. And what happens is the XM insurance steps in and covers that risk. In our case, it was up to 95% of the invoice value, which is well inside our profit margin. So in the event of default, we would still recover 95% of what we were owed.
Got it. Let's end on the following, since I know we're in overtime. Give us your advice to all these small business owners out there about what they should focus on right now. Based on your experience, what are the things that would be most important for them to know based on your experience? Klein, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, first of all, U.S. companies are viewed very positively overseas. So we have a very good positive record. So take advantage of that. Get your feet wet by developing meaningful partnerships, and then look towards your local small business development centers to get resources, which will prevent you from making mistakes to being wet on the fly like I did. So,
Sean, your advice to the audience.
Sure. I think my advice would be to develop a basic export strategy. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. What countries, what markets do we want to enter? What's the best way to do that? Export Light is kind of U.S. To Mexico and Canada. Those are great practice grounds, pretty low stakes, nice free trade agreements. And then start into the more complicated, harder to access markets. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's going to happen. You're going to spend money that you wish you hadn't. But overall, the benefits that have been delivered to our company from focusing on exports are undeniable versus if we just stayed in our home state.
All right, Lisa, wrap us up, bring us home. What's your advice to the audience?
There are resources and people who are ready to help you. So whether you are just getting started or you are wanting to grow more, there's so many resources right there. You're not going to remember everything you heard about today, but what I encourage people to do is make friends. Make friends and ask for help and let people tell you their stories, and you'll be surprised where you can go.
Yeah, ask for help is a big one.
Perfect. All right, Lisa, Sean, Klein, thank you so much. Really appreciate your help and your guidance. I'll turn it back over to you, Wendy, to close us up. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for joining today. Thank you to all the businesses who participated. I'm on the panel for sharing your strategies for global success. This has been awesome. And also to all the interagencies for your collaboration. Just want to remind you that the presentation, transcript, and recording will be available within about 7 to 10 business days. It will appear on the Census Academy site, and that link was placed in the chat. Just check back and you can find a list of other outreach events. And once again, please complete the evaluation because this helps us to build on the content that we bring you and to assist you in your business operations, as well as to help you build your global markets. So once again, thank you for joining and enjoy the rest of your day. This completes the webinar.